Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is Path of Light. This is the first whiteboard and an introduction. So this class is probably some of the most, I don't want to say incendiary, but I want to say impactful information that I can possibly bring into this world in this moment. So believe me, there's a lot of forces that would like to distract or make it not possible for me to share this. So dive right in. This is all original ways of looking at, conceiving of, and comprehending what light is, what is light's behavior, and abstract innate qualities of what light is and does. And none of this is from what I have read in a book, even though some things I will talk about are things that are from the scientific worldview and things that are available in your world that you're familiar with, that other people have already been thinking about and talking about. But I'm going to use that as common language to relate about things that are unique to the way that I'm looking at things. All right. So also, it was very intimidating when I first got the viewpoint of all of this knowledge about that I'm about to share with you about the nature of light. I was so excited. So this is me in 2021, sitting in my lawn chair, looking up at the night sky and at all these pinpoints of brilliance and having this consideration and having this viewpoint. And it was very abstract. It was not something that was articulated and put into words. And then this is me being like, how in the world am I possibly going to communicate this to other people? Because I like it when I get cosmic assignments. I'm like, oh, hey, this is so cool. I love thinking about this. But I have to admit, I was very intimidated. So I had to develop a whole type of new diagram structure to be able to convey what I am even trying to convey. And you guys in this class, and also so many apologies if there are any issues with my initial emails going out. So welcome to new students. And I think that I migrated my previous semester's worth of students and mushed everybody together. And I think that you all got the email today, but please forgive me if anybody is watching this in the archive and you didn't get the email for today's live class. That's my mistake. And it's because sometimes I'm having a lot of trouble with technology. So if you're a previous student, a returnee, and you have already done tuition in previous semesters, you don't have to pay again. Please just contact me and just say in the email, like, Aurora, please include me in class. And please forgive me for not including you. Okay, so that's all administrative, business, and housekeeping. And now back to like the real stuff. So I also want to tell you that I know my other class, Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, sometimes includes challenging topics, especially like the last few classes that I did were definitely incendiary and gasoline and dynamite. And I love talking about those things and having an impact, but this class is different. And pardon me while I also have chat lips. This class is different and has a different intention. The other class, I want to be able to articulate everything and say, hold nothing back and say exactly what is going on in the world. But in this class, I'm going to talk about our world from a pristine viewpoint, from the viewpoint of how things are supposed to be structured, and in order to give you a type of recalibration of what you can expect and of the way that things are even supposed to be. So I'm trying to get across that I am not afraid to poke a hornet's nest or say things that need to be said, but this is not the format for me talking about those things. And I would like for all of you to take your tendril of attention away from those topics just for a little while. It can be during the time that you're in class with me, or it can be for the next couple of weeks. But I would like for you to let those things simmer on the back burner. You're certainly not going into denial or new age fantasizing or wishing that Calgon will fly and take you away in a UFO. No, this is like an exercise. Consider this an exercise. And so these are the things that I do also, and I was doing it a lot in 2021 in order to not escape from a very garbage world or things that are non-ideal, but to intentionally place my attention on this purity of knowledge as a doorway forward. Because really, just focusing continually on garbage will give you more garbage. This is truthful. Although I have to focus on garbage in order to clean it up, this is not the intention. So using my art studio as a good example, sometimes I have to I'm not touching technology right now. If people hop in and out of the meeting, that is your choice. Thank you very much. So please know that also about me, because it absolutely breaks my train of thought. Okay, so if you come into the meeting and then break the connection and then want to come back in, like I might not press the button for you. Okay, thank you for understanding that. Here in my studio, sometimes I'm between projects, and it's like the place is a disaster area. I have coffee cups and whatever, toast from the morning, and all these different things. My sweater, dirty, whatever. Took off my gym shirt and threw it on the floor. Any of these things are in the studio. And then also there might be active dirt, which is like mud or bugs or something gross that doesn't even belong there. And all of these things impede the creative process. But sometimes I am too much in the creative process to be able to deal with that cleanup. But it's really necessary sometimes to be like, okay, this place like is not even functional anymore. Clean up all the stuff that's not supposed to be here. And then it is time to get into creativity mode. And so when I have completed the cleaning aspect of organizing my studio, then when it's time to make cool, fun stuff, I don't stop and I don't clean again. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm in the midst of my creative interests, and what I'm going to do is just stop to wash these coffee mugs just to make everything spick and span. No, I'm like, nope, the time for washing coffee mugs is over. Now I'm in my creative fervor. Okay. So think about that in terms of doing this class. This class is really about a creativity, a different mindset, a different approach. You're going to be asked to do some real heavy lifting with your mind muscles and with your comprehension abilities. And please be prepared to go into a much more abstract state. So I would like to keep this as like a clear container that you can be in this mind state for a little while. So we're not going to be focusing on everything that's wrong in the world. We're not denying it, but we are looking at really the truth of what I'm trying to convey. A world that is a miracle. The world is a miracle, and you are a miracle within the miraculous nature of this world. There are so many things that I'm going to describe using scientific words and the scientific viewpoint. Those words, I want to say denute, but I don't know if that's the word, denature. They take something essential away from miracles. So I'm going to talk about things in ways, hopefully, that will spark you again to look at the world with wonder. The last time you looked at the world with wonder might have been like, I don't know, when you were a tiny child, like it might have been a long time. So please allow you to go into that mind state again and cultivate it intentionally. I call this taking refuge on the path of light. Okay, so let's talk about the path of light. Also, the path of light is nonlinear, and I'm going to describe this to you with lots of pictures. And when you are on the path of light, you are becoming one with all light everywhere. Getting a package delivery. We'll see if Cheeky barks. I don't know. We might have. Wait, I should hydrate. Stop for a moment and hydrate. Wait to see if Cheeky barks. All sorts of wonderful things that always happen during class, but I'm happy to receive packages. I do. I have to probably say a sign for something. Hold on. Let me press pause. Sorry, guys. Thank you for that interruption. And also, I have something that's like vital to share. So it's topical to this class. I've taught you about cleaning and clearing in some of my different classes and workshops, using your hand vortex to clear things out. And especially like when you receive packages, like it's just a habit for me to always clear things before I bring them inside the house. But clearing is to denote something that is like negative, that is not supposed to be there. And I usually say something like, all curses are removed or all negativity is removed. But I also would like for you to be encouraged now to say when you receive something, all blessings are received. Okay. So this definitely balances things out. You get it? I'm trying to give you a balanced mind state. Important to confront stuff that's not supposed to be there, but also really, really important to intentionally spend time focusing on the things that are supposed to be there, such as the miraculous nature of light. So when you are on the path of light or in the path of light, it means that you are literally combining with all light everywhere. And there is no distinction between yourself and all light everywhere. I'm going to give you integument, a staircase between your present level of comprehension and this totally different way of thinking about things, and will hopefully make it accessible to you. But you will, I'm warning you, like you will have to effort. Okay, good. You will have to try hard. And let me also pull up my notes, and I will refer to them a lot in order to be able to talk about this. Okay. So one of the first things is the concept of space and time. Space-time is a fabric. I call it the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. Your scientific world does not include consciousness as an element to this tapestry or interwoven series of events, but it is innate, and you must think of it in that way. Light travels through space-time. It experiences space, but it does not experience time. This is sometimes going to be hard for your cognitive mind. Just stick with me, okay? Um, Light is a continuum. Sometimes we might talk about it as a piece of light or a particle of light only as a convention. You really must think of it as a giant convoluted surface that is wavering everywhere in all direction. And when I talk about stars, I'm going to start drawing and sharing some diagrams with you. I will draw them as a simplified circle, like a line drawing, but with your mind, please add to it the sense that it is spherical and comprehend that stars in the night sky are spherical emanators of light. So you have these types of 360-degree all the way around emanations. I hope I'm acting it out well, and profusions of light. And light is not some dead, stupid, idiotic thing, as science would like for you to think about. And we have to talk about a little bit of the origin of that. It's not in my notes, but it relates to artificial light. So in the world before artificial light was a thing, like you guys might take it for granted, you turn on the light switch, it's the metaphor for something that is instantaneous. The light goes on. You're like, click, the light is on. Life is so easy, right? And it is an artificial light that doesn't necessarily contain the same level of cognitive nutrition for either your mind state or your DNA or your light body or your frequency body or any part of you that the natural light of the sun contains. So people have become a little bit taking light for granted. And also, the light that is given to you is non-nutritive. And please dial your mind to a different time, like in your cognitive time capsule, to be able to think about like what were things like before you could easily have light all the time. So we're thinking of like when people only had artificial light that might have come from a torch, a campfire, or a candle. The light that is in the sky, the light that is the sun, and of course the stars, would be considered so essential, so miraculous. Like it is literally truthful. It is the center of life in our world. Without the light and also the warmth, which is infrared light, and we'll talk about the spectrum of frequencies and how all of these frequencies are essentially light. So that means things that your senses experience as heat, that's light. Things that your senses experience as electricity, that's light. And things that your senses perceive as silly, random, junkola is actually light. And you just don't know how to comprehend it, so you don't perceive it as light. Then there's also optical light, which is what mostly humans who are visual, and most humans have like healthy eyesight and they're able to perceive light. That is what most people think of when I define light. But light is so much more than just optical brilliance. So light is really intelligence. It is information. The intelligence and information is also self-sentient and self-aware and self-motivated. So the viewpoint of looking at a sun as if it is just something dead and stupid, I'm going to hydrate because, I'm going a million miles an hour inside of myself here. That light is really making a choice in the way that it interacts with the fabric of reality. So change around your mind. The light is not just some silly photon that got flung off of the surface of a star and went careening outward in random directions. No, the light is a particle of sentience, even though you recognize it, that's a convention. It's actually a continuum of sentience that makes a very, very clear cognitive choice about what it is coming to participate in. And that includes the journey that light goes on, and also what forms or states of matter the light interacts with. And that includes photosynthesis. We'll talk in depth about photosynthesis, one of my favorite presentations that's part of this curriculum, and also talking about limitations of the speed of light. So some of Earth's science, the problem that you're having is that there's this innate presumption about how fast light is moving, what are its limitations, and what are its behaviors. And that is not universally truthful. I falter with my language because you're like, but it is universally truthful. This, and this, and this, and this. So you have to say, and once you expand your viewpoint and then you see what is really going on, then you recognize that that is a nonsense number. It does not, it's a number that does not make sense because you'll have to. So, a better way for me to say it to people in this class, because you guys aren't resistant to this, you will have to release some basic presumptions that you have taken about light, which are things about like how fast light moves, how fast light can move, what is happening with light in all these different ways. So please know that the present your present knowledge from the purely objective science and materialistic viewpoint of what light is and what it is doing is inherently limited and flawed. That's a better way of saying it. And so please be willing to release the inherently flawed thing in order to grasp at something that is totally new. So when light participates in photosynthesis and light becomes matter, that's what happens in a plant. And it is happening all around you all the time. It is a literal miracle. It is not an accident where a portion of light and consciousness is somehow accidentally becoming a part of a plant. It is a very, very intentional participation in a narrative structure. What the sun and other stars emit are narrative structures, not just optical light. So they emit stories and timelines and narratives. I need to hydrate more, and I'm going to start drawing pictures for you. Sorry, I'm not trying to make strange hand motions. I have to, I'm actually intimidated because I've pressed weird buttons. Okay. Did it, and let's do it. So, as a convention, when I'm drawing stars, I'm always going to choose red. And here, I don't know if I can use this thing, so I have to touch this thing like this. Okay, I hope you can see this properly on your screen. This is my convention for a star. And I want to make it fatter. Hold on a sec. So first, let's say that's the star that's in your sky, the sun, and it's close to you, so it seems primary or louder than the other musicians that are in the band. But let's draw the other musicians that are in the band too, because here you have all of these other stars that are in all of these other places. What are places? Places are space-time coordinates. They're places. And you're like, Aurora, you're telling me things I already know. I'm like, no, I'm asking you to think on a deeper level. Places are places. They are coordinates in the fabric of space. They are places as opposed to times. All right. So these are all individual, unique places that are separated by what you perceive as space. Let's put singularities at the center of all of them. So I'm going to make a big singularity dot, object not drawn to scale, so that you can see it in the center of all of these. All right, these are giant singularity dots because actually they would be the smallest dot that a pencil could possibly create, but then you would not be able to see it and you would be endlessly frustrated. So now let's also draw some light. And this is, of course, according to how mostly humans are thinking about light based upon the convention of how your eyesight is constructed. You're perceiving that light comes from the surface of this star and starts to go in a direction. I don't know if I can make the yellow more yellow so you can see it, but it starts to go away from the star. This is what you're thinking of. And some of this is from your training, like the way that you might have been educated, but some of it is from your visual perception. And I'm going to ask you to totally think in a different way. But for right now, this is what you think. So this is like from point A, where I have my cursor, to point B. Light moves in a direction. And you're kind of considering that each one of these has spokes that go all the way around it in a spherical profusion all the way around. Of course, I would take all the entire time of class if I had to draw this whole entire thing. But think of them as like a dandelion seed head, right? Except each one of these This arrow means it goes on infinitely, dot, 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 infinitely in all directions. So what you really end up having are expanding spherical shells. And these expanding spherical shells also have an interweaving quality where you have like your sine waves that are going like this, and then you also have sine waves that are coming like this, just like fabric has two directions that create a unified whole. So you have this continuous rippling surface that is really coming away from each star. And then you also have each star interplaying with all of the other stars through this amazing complex dynamic of, you could call it visual music. So that is a valid viewpoint, but it does not really show you the entirety of everything that's happening. So please release that viewpoint in order to think of it in a different way. I'm going to just rewind a lot of this light scribble scrabble so that you can see things better. And here is how you kind of recalibrate your mind. We're going to take all of these purple dots and we're going to overlap them, because the basic truth that I'm always trying to convey to you in my classes is that each of these singularities is not discrete. These are not separate purple dots. They're actually all the same purple dot. The singularity is by its nature single. There is only one of it. So that means that although there's singularity at the center of this star, and at the center of this star, and at the center of this star, it is all the same singularity. So if I make all of these dots jump here and overlap, then I come up with this diagram that I'm going to show you. All right, so this is what I would like for you to do. Next time you're outside looking at the brilliance of the night sky, you see all these individual points of light that are in the darkness of the sky, but you have to understand you're looking at something from the spread out viewpoint. And with your mind, what you want to do is think about, what would it look like if you folded all of that fabric and overlapped them? So I know I just drew them all as straight lines, but as you're bringing this point closer to this point, what happens with the fabric between there? It kind of gathers up. It kind of becomes, like curly, ruffled, gathered together, and creates a curved fabric of space-time. So now I'm gonna make this person because I'm touching the computer. I'm gonna give you, let's scroll to like a new area over here. So when you get everybody all overlapped, bring all of those singularities, I'm trying to choose a color, all of those singularities from all these different places to be overlapping in one place. Here's the diagram that you end up having. Oh, you have to mute yourself. No, you have to mute yourself now. That's a big no-no, guys. If you come into class late, like you have to mute yourself. Because it's very distracting to all of us. So now I'm going to draw not only one star, here's another star. And here's another star. And here's another star. And of course, like I'm just doing a very sloppy version of doing this, but really they would all overlap so perfectly that in all of my diagrams now, you'll just see one line like this, and you'll know that it's many, many stars overlapping. And here you see one purple dot, but you know that it's all the purple dots that not only can exist in every single star overlapping, it is the singularity that is at the center of any or all matter overlapping. And that includes at the center of the nucleus of, let's say, your DNA, or the center of an atom that resides within your body, the nucleus that is at the center of the planet, the nucleus that is at the center of the galaxy. That singularity overlaps with all of these other singularity points. All right, now let's address light. And I'm going to use black as the color, although I know I was using yellow as the color to show that it's going in this direction and it goes in infinite amounts. So here it is, infinity. But I am going to ask you to turn your brain inside out. And I'm going to get you to comprehend that the light actually doesn't go anywhere. The light actually stays right here. It stays, as I like to say, at home, in its bed, in its comfy pajamas. It actually does not jump off the surface of the planet or the sun at all. You're like, Aurora, what happens? Where does it go? What does it do? What is time made of? How are we experiencing anything? Tell me more. And the answer is, this is that line that was a line from point A to point B. This is a line that represents the story or the trajectory of what happened to that photon in the narrative that is the expanding shell of possibilities and probabilities coming out of the star. And again, possibilities and probabilities don't come out of the light bulb that's next to your bedside table. That's just artificial light, although it contains some quotient of this. But we're really talking about a vivified light, or a light that is essential, like filled with essence, that is a different type of light. This is light that writes a story with its mind. And in that story, there are moments. So like, here is moment 1, here is moment 2, here is moment 3, here is moment 4, all the way through all these different moments. And then here is, another moment. And this isn't a static loop. It is continually expanding until that loop encounters a viewer. And what it does not look like, first I'll draw what it doesn't look like, because I know that this whole way that I draw this can be confusing. But like, let's draw Earth over here. That is not where Earth is. So there's not like Earth there, and then let's draw like a little person, like I don't get her color. Like, here's a little guy. He's like, hi, like I'm a person. I live here on Earth, and I'm looking at stuff from this. No, I'm Xing this out. No, that is not what we're doing. No, because actually Earth and the person, erase these little people who don't exist there. They all actually exist over here at the singularity. They are actually not on a planet external to all of this, looking at this from the outsider viewpoint, okay? And I'm going to show an animation of this. You can really comprehend it. But when this story is observed, this loop of events is sent back to singularity, back to the source of everything, and the loop then gets smaller. This edge here gets smaller and smaller and smaller until the whole entire story structure collapses back in. And that is the neutralization of that particular story structure. Okay, so wait, I have to press a button. Okay, thank you. It's actually, I'm doing good with technology. Now I'm going to show you share screen so that I can show you the animated version of this. Let's do it. Share. And I have this. Oh, wait, let me give you privacy over here. I have this on my YouTube, but it's sometimes hard for me to pull up YouTube while we're in a meeting. And just know, so like, check it out on YouTube, and also check it out on your Path of Light downloadable homework videos, because I have a kick-ass song on it. But here I'll just play it for regular, okay, with no song in the background. All right. Oh, I do have the song. Wait. I got to change the audio settings. If we're going to do this right, we're going to do this right. So now, okay. Everybody collect yourselves. Definitely a perfectionist when it comes to audio settings. Let's get it properly now. Do it correct. Oh, you're going to love it. Good. Okay, starting from the beginning. And this song is off Believers, if you like it. Sorry, I didn't keep on repeating. Sorry about that. It was an abrupt ending. Now let me describe to you what you were looking at there. So the first part of the animation shows the beginning of what one of these pathways looks like. So again, I'm using the convention that you have one little piece of light that makes one pathway, just so that I can show you, like with one thread, what is happening throughout a whole entire sweater. But you're going to have to, with your mind, start to comprehend that there's many, many threads, and they all fit together, and they are all making this larger sweater or tapestry of reality. So in the beginning, there's the simplified version. There's one loop. And I know when I draw it with my pen goes like this, loop. So your mind wants to go like, oh, here's the beginning, and then here's the middle, and then here's the end. That is not what's correct. So what happens is the loop starts out like this, and it starts to get longer and longer and longer. That loop is the space between point A and point B. Time is the description of how long it takes to get from point A to point B. Science says light moves at a particular rate and it can't move faster from there, and that's how long it takes for light to get from point A to point B. But the truth is that the light or the photon never actually leaves the singularity or the star, and that the fabric of time-space and the event structure is what actually starts to balloon outward. The photon goes on an inner journey, not a physical journey. This is the transformation. And this, everything that I'm giving you here, is how you go beyond materialism and start to connect to the miracle of the material world around you, so that that way you can also be powerful in transforming the matter that is around you. So this class is really like the integument or the baby steps of how do you master matter. None of my intention is to gain this aim this information at like evil scientists or villainous world leaders or anything like that. No crappy people. So yeah, I'm really only focusing this on people who have already been in my class and people who are good people, because you are the people who are, worthy of this knowledge, and you're going to take it and use your value system and apply good stuff to it. So I feel very happy and comfortable about sharing this with you. To those who aren't worthy or who aren't on this level, who are only looking for information or something that they can use to exploit, or like whatever, something can I patent it? Can I make it into a machine? Can I use it to hurt other people or something like that? This class is not for them. And also, that is not an appropriate, like you're gonna see as you're in this class, you're gonna be like, that is not what this is for. Because as you start to change as you do these calisthenics of the mind, and you're kind of jumping up into a different viewpoint and starting to look at the world differently, you start to look at matter differently. Like when you can transform matter or translate it on its basic nature. You look at matter in a different way, but scientists might be like, oh, goody, like, I'm rubbing my hands together like, goody, like, I can transform matter, make whatever I want. But it's like, that is not the right approach to what we are doing here, so you shouldn't be random or self-serving in the way that you would want to transform matter. Like, I will have one class where I'm teaching you about the fabric of space-time and these tiny little comfy chairs or these tiny little gravity wells that cause matter to come together into these types of covalent bonds. It's a very, very different way of looking at what brings together these building blocks of reality. But I don't give that to you in order for people to be like, oh, good, like, let's make some kind of like bad stuff and like F things up as much as we can. I'm like, no, that is not what this is about. This is really about, in order to look at the profound nature of the miracle that you are embedded within, and to be in like wonder and to be amazed, and then also like you're already participating in that profound patterning, that presence pattern in your body. And when you do it right, this gives you health, vitality, and eternal life. So really, I'm giving to you the essence of how to master the matter of your own body But part of this is comprehending and leveling up that your own body is part of a continuum. Your own body is part of a continuum of consciousness, matter, light, and energy that cannot be separated from these other things. So then your motivation or capacity to exploit reduces, because you would be exploiting self, even though some evil ones would use that as a reason, like, I'm only exploiting myself, but you are good ones, and that's why I don't even want to bring evil into it, because it's just a completely different mind state. But like, you would definitely, you start to comprehend when you're on these, when you have this level of access to light, that you really don't need to steal from or exploit anyone or anything else. You really do have access to an infinite amount of energy. So yes, I heard someone click into position there. This information that I'm giving you is absolutely like the handbook for accessing or comprehending what humans call 0 point energy. Accessing and comprehending what infinite energy really is. But once you are a part of this world of pure light and have access to an infinite amount of energy, I have said this many times, your motivation should change. That a lot of what I'm sharing is not just so that way you can figure out how to make your electrons flow in a wire for 3 cents cheaper, to have cheaper electrical light. Like, that is not my intention here, and has never been that, and I've said that for 10 years as I've been teaching my other class. No, this is also why, because the torus, the basic of the torus is humans are on the verge of being able to comprehend the profundity of that shape, and then begin to have access to what is over unity or extra energy, or energy that cannot be explained through material linear rationalism. And humans mostly are not totally ready to be able to receive that information and use it well. Because of the tendency to want to exploit, and because of the separation of self from the entirety. So as you claim the entirety, again, it does not mean that you have a justification for like it's me. I get to crap up the joint because it's me. Like, no, that is definitely not acceptable at all. And I can attest to that, because I'm like, but I am me. I'm the joint, and I don't want to crap up the joint. So if you want to crap up the joint, you can't be me. And so this is why we're coming out of that world of duality, where you have to be like, no, the stuff that's not me and the stuff that wants to crap up the joint. But again, we don't go into that in this class. And apologies for even bringing your mind down that road. When the light creates that narrative structure, it is the equivalent of showing you point A to point B across your screen like this. If particles do not interact with anything, they go on to infinity. So here are some things that you can think about if you are ever an insomniac or up late at night or whatever. You have 5 minutes while you're standing in line at the supermarket. The idea that if light is emanated from a star and it doesn't interact with matter, it just goes on infinitely. It just goes on infinity. It experiences nothing. It's just like flying. This is me. This is my dance interpretation of a photon flying through the fabric of space-time, experiencing nothing. It's forever. That's it. That is the life or experience for some of these photons. So what would that look like? In my diagram, and thank you, Curtsy. Thank you for that wonderful dance, right? That was the most boring dance ever. And yes, thank you. I'm trying to be hilarious. The loop that comes off of that diagram, in that case, becomes an infinitely expanding loop. It goes off of your screen, and it keeps going through the ceiling and through the stratosphere, and it never ends. That's the world's most boring story. The photon says, one day I emerged and did nothing. Nothing happened. I met nothing. I saw no one. I interacted with nothing. The end. That's the story. And that is like a null signal. The star, as a presence, never receives any feedback. So the concept of photons as feelers, these particles or pieces of light are sent off, I should say individuations of light. These individuations of light are sent off, or the narrative structures are created as a way of being able to sense reality. That the star, but also the larger network of minds that are on the stellar network, including me, I'm Aurora, I'm there, wants to know what is going to happen. And if the photon experiences nothing, it gives feedback to the star. Nothing is going to happen. But if the photon encounters a consciousness or like a surface that can absorb it or transform it or bounce it off of there, then there is an activity. Something happens. And that loop, instead of going back endlessly, starts to shrink as the information is sent back to the star. So I teach you guys all about sun gazing as a practice. And I teach that the light, it's kind of like the sun is out here, but it comes to you here. So it's traveling across distance and space. It comes inside of you, circulates all through your light body, and then you send that energy back, right? So that's a valid truth from the linear viewpoint. But as you start to comprehend that there is no space between you and the sun, because you have the singularity inside of you and the sun has the singularity inside of the sun, then what you do is you fold the fabric of space-time and you and the sun overlap. And then these cognitive events of your interaction with the light from the sun are you sending back or shortening the light that has I want to say traveled to you, but it's not a travel across point A to point B, but you have received that light and you now transmit your cognitive experience back to the sun. Okay, so let's watch this again. And let me also see, are my audio settings driving everybody crazy? Probably, because I bet it's noisy in the background. I'm sorry. Nothing is working. Just laugh. Let's do it. Okay, go back to the beginning here. Okay, so wait. Now it went blank. So before we even get into the multi aspect, let's go through this. Here is light that is going on its journey. There's a big story. Lots of stuff is happening, but then it interacts with something, and then that loop gets smaller and gets drawn back in. But then a new pathway emerges. A new thing happens and comes out, and then it gets drawn back in. And then a new thing comes out from a different direction and gets drawn back in. Now let's go over here to this. It happens a lot. It doesn't just happen one at a time, it happens a lot at a time. And there's a whole pattern in the way that these loops are coming out, emerging, and then being drawn back in. That is exactly like an oscilloscope. So I'm sure you guys have seen an oscilloscope because that's a part of modern life. Like you listen to a song on Spotify and it shows you a visualization of what the auditory information looks like. That's an oscilloscope. It's the visualization of a song. And what you're looking at here is music in time. This is the visualization of a song where these very many different narratives, potentials for what can be experienced, and interwoven timelines or narrative structures are constantly being emitted and then drawn back in, emitted and then drawn back in. And that process, I'll come back to me and now I'll fix the audio settings. That process is the process of the sun perfecting itself, and not only the sun, but all the stars, the world of pure light is what I really should say, perfecting itself and improving its design or improving the narrative structure that's being created. So this also speaks to some real concerns when we think about what is imperfect in the world. And some people in the linear viewpoint are kind of like, hello, is there anybody up there? Is anybody taking care of this creation? Do they know that things aren't right? And what do we do about it? And the answer is that this creation and this experience is constantly in a state of being improved and evolved. It literally is a constantly evolving art project. And that's what all of those time loops are. So this is not a linear experience. The sun does not say, first I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write all this book with all these misspellings and bad paragraphs and all that stuff. And then I'm going to say, okay, all the way to the end of the book. That book is done. Now I'm going to go through it and I'm going to edit it. I'm going to start at the beginning and I'm going to go through it. I'm going to fix every misspelling in linear order, and then I'm also going to fix all the bad grammar in linear order, and then I'm going to fix this in this way. That is not how the sun, as an author, is fixing this book or writing this narrative. The sun is constantly fixing misspellings, constantly fixing, I want to say, misportrayals, things that aren't seen right, constantly fine-tuning a series of events. Because when you work, you have to work holistically. You have to work at one thing over here, changes the balance of this thing over here, because these are all interwoven events. So everything is constantly being fine-tuned in all of these directions. It's a very, very big job. And when you look at, if you see, like, if the world is not a perfect world, or you perceive that there are problems in the world, that's valid, because it's still work in progress. So your observership, or the observership of an embodiment creature, is one of the aspects or habits that I wanted to say that make a loop shrink back. Observership means that you are collapsing waveforms, or taking the potentials of pure light and pure probabilities and possibilities and experiencing them as actual reality events. And when you experience those reality events, your cognitive consciousness is also supposed to be connected to the sun that emanated stuff, so that the sun knows what has happened. And that's you doing your sun gazing every day and every night. So you wake up in the morning and you get information and motivation from the sun. That's light. So I talk about this as like a health practice, and it is. And it also feels great. Like, all of my neighbors know me. I live in this apartment complex, little balcony out front, and they all know that I'm going to get up in the morning. They're going to see me in my bathrobe, drinking some coffee. And also, my eyes are blurry. I don't have my contact lenses on, and just let the sun come into your face. But also, sun gazing is much more than just bathing your face in the sun. It is also ingesting that light, ingesting those timelines, taking that in as directives for your day, bringing them all the way in through your heart and into like your deep passions in your emotional centers. And then also kind of doing a slam dunk, like kind of connecting back to the sun. Like I told you, that loop. In that loop, you get feedback in the moment where you're like, okay, boss, I got the idea. Now here's what I'm going to do. Then you do things in time for many hours. Then the sun goes down. So this is the sun out there. Then I have this window over here, and the sun is going to go down through that window. I'm going to spend some time staring at the sun while it goes down over the horizon. And I'm going to say to the sun energetically. So I'm not going to say it with my words, like, like a coffee meeting, like, okay, boss, here's what I did. I'm going to say with my energy. I'm giving energy back, what I experienced during my day, so that way the sun can internalize that and then recalibrate throughout the night. And when the rays of the sun come up again in the morning, those will be the fresh directives for you to guide you through your journey and make you do the right things, that way you will optimize your own health, but also you will optimize the rest of the continuum of time space that you are experiencing. So when I describe that to you, you start to get a sense of the sacred nature of time. Although humans have been taught very, very cruelly to commodify their time, and this is called get a job, kid, chomping my cigar. Get a job, kid. Can't be sitting around staring at the sun all day long. You gotta get out there, dig a ditch, make a dollar, and then you can continue to sustain your life. That is like a complete, diminishment of everything. That is the denudement or whatever, to dilute the importance of what time is and what we are really here for. When you are able to direct your own flight through time, through your choices that you make when you don't have a scheduled existence, you are able to connect with the sun, the intentions of reality, and the intention for the natural patterning of events. Of course, if you are scheduled, you will be at school at this moment, or you will be at your work at this moment, or you will be at this scheduled meeting at this moment. then you are not freely circulating through this pattern of events. And humans must freely circulate through this pattern of events in order to have states of health and vitality, but also in order to give health and vitality to the larger system. So what you're talking about is moving out of the domesticated and artificial connection and relationship with time and into a natural and fluid connection and relationship with time that you would call being a wild creature or being a feral person or exploring your feral nature or acting naturally and not being ruled by or scheduled by the clock, but instead going according to a series of innate and spontaneous inner directives. Those inner directives literally come from the sun, and the sun is always trying to upgrade your existence. And if you're like, I would love to do that, but I have someplace where I have to be, so I can't upgrade my existence now, off to work I go. And like that's of course the non-ideal nature of the non-pristine system that you're in. So this relates in every way to what is your goal in transcending reality. It is to be able to master matter and to be able to live in a way that doesn't require commodification of resources, but it is also to master time so that it is you are 100% in control of and directing and making choices about what you're doing in each moment. And as a brief aside to the non-pristine nature of the world that we find ourselves in, money has been used as a time distortion tool for a very long time to make people do things and participate in timelines and activities that they wouldn't ordinarily do. Bribery to distort time. And what we are doing right now, and why I ask you to focus your tendril of attention on like correcting your flight through time and being able to participate in this beautiful symphony and these lines of energy, these lines of movement that are coming out of there, is that we are changing our economy in the physical world right now. It is not only about changing from one form of currency to another. It is about changing the innate value of what we use currency for. It has been used as a negative behavioral control tool to distort reality. In a pristine system, currency is used to reward the natural behavior that you would do ordinarily. What would you do and who would you be if you weren't motivated by money? But you are supported and sustained in that. That's what I call energy flows to excellence. I did some good curriculum on that formally in what can be called sacred commerce, but really you're looking at when you become a part of the world of pure light, and I have this in this class, it's part of the economy of light, you feel that you want to be optimized and you want everyone else who's a part of that economy to also be optimized, because that is how you end up having an eternal experience, or an immeasurable is a better way of thinking about it, amount of energy. Immeasurable. To say that there is an infinite amount of something almost brings to mind the invitation to waste it. And I don't want you to waste it or think that there is so much that you're just can use it foolishly or sloppily, but there is an immeasurable amount of it, and it is ever expanding. So what do I mean by this? And again, if you're ever an insomniac, just think about the concept of an immeasurable amount of light that is always expanding. Light is information. That means like this is all the stuff that we know, and it's always expanding. When the sun and the stars are doing these strings of energy to be able to feel reality, feel the nature of reality, and then retune and recalibrate in response to those feelers coming back to them, that is part of the sun becoming more intelligent. And we look at the sun as if it is this mentor and something to look up to. And of course, humans make fun of early pagan or simplistic societies that literally worshipped it. It's not perfect. It can make not mistakes, but things that need to be improved. And that expectation that the sun is always creating the correct thing is, I think, damaging to your relationship with the sun and the world of pure light, because the sun is an artist in the modality of self-expression, coming to know itself more, and then constantly working on and improving the reality structure. So when I teach you about flying rainbow lasagna, I also teach you similarly that you don't have to be an expert to begin. You begin where you are. Doing the activities brings you to greater levels of expertise. You have a pencil with an eraser. You own your mistakes. When you make a mistake and screw things up, then you're like, oh, that's bad. That looks bad. I think I will erase it and draw it better next time. Please know that this is the exact value system that the sun and the stars and larger reality creation and sustenance creatures are doing the same thing. They are artists creating and exploring their creation, and you are a part of their creation. But once you're on the path of light, then you're really like, what? I am not separate from this at all. I'm part of this. So everything that I am teaching to your cognitive mind right now is to get you to the emotional realization that you are not separate from this and you are a part of this. And in the immeasurable, in the immersion that you feel in the immeasurable amount of light that there is, you feel that you want to use it wisely. It's like there's an infinite amount of truthful information and it is constantly expanding. And you don't feel like you want to waste it or fritter it or get rid of it in somehow. I mean, saying those things is like, you're like, oh, like you're cringing. I'm like, good. Like you have the right emotional response when I say those things. Like, yeah, like, no, because think of it, like when people have a lot of money in the world, they're like, I'm a billionaire. Here I am, chomping my cigar, wearing my monocle, and throwing money out the window, throwing money out the window. That is not what we do with energy. You're an energetic millionaire, billionaire, but you're not wasteful with it. Your job is really to connect energy to where it really needs to go. That is how you have an immeasurable, ever expanding system of light or energy because the energy is not wasted. And let's also talk about this bullet train to infinity that I sometimes talk about in my other class. The way that consciousness gets onto this bullet train of infinite speed, which is faster than light speed, is through being super conscious and not wasting energy. So there's real things here in focusing your mind and not frittering away your time and not being scheduled and not participating in bribery of time wastage, but also in being very focused in how you use your energy, how you use your emotional energy, and not losing any of it to friction. This is what puts you in the level of being at light speed and beyond. And I'm going to emphasize this point that I'm making now again in the fourth presentation of this class, but let me explain it to you right now. So when you're on the path of light, it's like you are standing in the oncoming traffic. This analogy doesn't feel very comfortable to you when you think about it from the physical world. So in the physical world, okay, here you are standing safely on the sidewalk, right? And looking at the street, and the street has cars going by either way. You're like, wow, I feel nice and safe right now. But if you stand in the middle of the road, then it's like, oh, that is where you get hit by oncoming vehicles, right? Okay, this is not that fun. But what if the road is actually a path of light? And right now you find yourself in the position of standing on the sidelines. You're not moving at light speed and beyond. You're an observer standing there on the sidewalk and you're looking at these photons or cars going by very fast. But what happens when you cognitively place yourself in the path of light? You stand there in that place, like in the footprint of the experience of those pieces of light. And when you interact with them, there are several things that can happen. In one case, you do nothing, which is like, you're like a sack of potatoes. You do nothing. A bunch of light smashes into you. And, there's not a lot of change. In another situation, the light comes into you and without any effort on your part, kind of lifts you up and carries you. I say that's like a fireman's carry, like a sack of potatoes. Picks you up, throws them over your shoulder, carries you like a sack of potatoes. Because that photon is like a runner on a marathon going very fast. And you're like slow. And it kind of sees you there. It's like, okay, pick you up, move you along with me. And then there's the third and I think most interesting option. And this is the one that you guys are all going to want to do. That's when you're on the path of light, the photon or the light comes to you or interacts with you, and then you accelerate. And it's like, imagine like instead of being in the middle of the road and a car is coming, you see a whole group of marathon runners. They're on a fun run. And you're just standing there in the middle of the road and they're all running towards you. And in the third version of this fun anecdote, this humorous anecdote, you start to run along with them. You're like, oh, I'm getting faster, I'm getting faster, I'm getting faster. And then you end up joining with their fun run. And that is joining the path of light. And when you're on that path of light, you are not only moving at light speed, you're moving at beyond light speed. You're on this bullet train of infinity with all of those fun runners, and there's really no one else around you. So this is a total transformation of your cognitive realm where you're like, wait a minute, there's no one on the sidewalk standing there watching me while I'm going by super fast. And they're not being like, whiz, what was that? No, there's no one there. And there's no one at the train station watching this bullet train whiz by. That's correct. There's no one to be like, see you suckers, like I'm better than you. That's correct. Because the cosmic infrastructure has been resolved to the point that energy is concentrated here going super fast, and nothing exists around it that is not going super fast. And when I say nothing, I mean no thing, and a thing is matter, and the matter requires energy to go fast, which means to move through time at a certain rate. Now, you guys just did some heavy lifting. Everybody hydrate. Hydrate. You just did a very good job of doing heavy lifting because I kind of brought you up there. We're going to return to that concept in several weeks. I'm looking at my notes. Okay, let me also just reemphasize in this class, some of the things that I will say over and over are different words for the definition of light. And you could always do a fun cognitive exercise, which is replacing these synonyms throughout any of these presentations. Light is intelligence, it is data, it is information, it's truthfulness, it's awareness, it's self-sentience, and it's the perception and description of the reality world around us. So optical light, of course, is a sensory description of the world around us. It's one of the ways that we understand, comprehend, and tell ourselves a story of what is here in the world. That light is not just a tool that is like an energy vibration or something that is bouncing off of other stuff that helps us to be able to navigate our environment. That light is actually a sentience in and of itself. And unlike the viewpoint that data is a series of dead, inert facts, look and consider light itself as something that is intelligent. It's an intelligence, an orderliness. So this is also another part of it. When light contains information or data and it is presented to you, quote unquote, it makes sense. So this is crucial. You have to have the notes in the right order in order to create the melody. You have to have the light or the information in the correct order in order for it to make sense, in order for it to be an accurate description of reality. And also, please comprehend the light that you're experiencing and everything that you perceive from your first person viewpoint is part of a much, much larger network of self-awareness. So I will draw this, but first let me just kind of show you with my hands. The light that is emitted from a star is spherical and comes in every direction. But the light that enters into your eye, your aperture here, is bespoke or customized. So although there might be a whole dandelion seed head, a lot of this that is coming in every direction, there's just one beam of light that comes from that star to come inside of you. So when you stand out under the night sky or when you're in your lawn chair and you look at all of these beautiful sparkling stars, each one is sending out a waveform. Here's a waveform from the side. Here's a waveform coming from me to you. And it is coming specifically to you, not randomly. Big stuff. You're part of a much, much larger network of self-awareness. If you were to receive all of the light or food for your mind that is emanating from a star, like in the night sky, it would definitely fry your brain and would be way overwhelming for you. So only a certain amount is sent into you. when it is sent into you, science is like, oh, and then the photon ended its journey. This is my David Attenborough voice. The wily photon emerging from the jungle of the fiery inferno of the sun, whooshing through 93 million miles of space to land on your retina, where its endless journey dies and then stays inside of your brain. Like, this is all silliness and nonsense. I hope it came across. I hope it was hilarious. But no, the wily photon is not getting trapped by your retina. And you have to comprehend like all of the silly projection and human nonsense that is put onto these abstractions of consciousness, and that think that you don't really know what is happening there. The retina is another place where miraculous things are happening. Light that is moving at this incredibly fast rate is transformed and state changed or phase changed so that it then becomes a physical impulse. It goes from something that is barely physical into something that is physical. So a lot of what this class explores is the envelope between what your biological senses and your cognitive presence defines as physical stuff, which is matter, or stuff that is energy, which is also physical but is not really physical. So optical light comes under that heading. It is something that is physical. You are perceiving it in the realm of the five senses, but it is not matter. And sorry if I just lost my train of thought there for a moment, but I wanted to talk about other forms of energy, like electricity is another thing that is really barely physical. And when we're using electricity, like you're really using a miraculous notion as a workaday thing. You turn on the light switch and the lights come on. It comes on because of electricity. But all of the electrons are really just potentials. And this is also something I'm going to teach you about in my sharing in this curriculum about different forms of artificial light. So, of course, initially in human history, artificial light is something that is from combustion. And only within the past couple of years has it been through something that is due to electricity, and that the nature of electricity is different than combustion, because in combustion, what you have is light that is stored up. So light is stored up through this process of photosynthesis, and then it re-emerges through combustion. But something very, very different is happening when you have incandescence or even some of these other forms of fluorescence. And light, like time and other things, that flow is defined by its flowing nature. So like electricity is defined by its flowing nature, even though in your world right now, you do a lot with finding ways to capture it or put it in a battery. But think about like time is defined by its flowing nature. There's even that old, it's a little bit of a corny song, if I could save time in a bottle, right? The sense of like, poetically, this guy's giving a cognitive truth. Like, you cannot save time in a bottle. You cannot stop the flow of time. Time by its very nature flows, and there's not a way to stop it from flowing. Pardon me while I deal with chaplets here. So not only time, but energy and these forms of light and awareness. Light is really defined by its flowing nature. Movement. That's a better way of saying all of this. Light is really defined by its movingness. It is not a static object. When you're on the path of light and you achieve light speed and beyond, you are part of a continuum of light. The best way I can describe this to you is if you've ever seen the blades of a rotating ceiling fan. You're like, yes, Aurora, I have seen them in reality many times. When they are static, they look like several individual spokes. But when you get that sucker spinning, it looks like one continuum of stuff. All right. And that is, of course, due to something I've talked about in my other class, the optical phenomenon known as persistence of vision, where your visual equipment tends to smear images together at a certain frame rate, smears images together. So you comprehend time relates to your visual apparatus, and whether you look at something as a solid state or something that has individual moving parts. When you get faster on a cognitive level, you start to look at time as one solid time crystal, one continuum, not as a series of individual fan blades or moving parts or individuated moments. All right, good. You're getting there. Okay, so also, why are stars so crucial? I'm just going to emphasize this again because in a lot of my teachings, I'm talking about the stars and I'm talking about these light loops that are coming out from the stars. The importance is that this is the origin of primal light. Like, there's artificial light, it is really secondary or tertiary. It's the outgrowth of something. So let's say you have a candle. That is the outgrowth of light that has been stored up by a bunch of bees. Where did the bees get the light from? They got it from flowers. Where did the flowers get the light from? They got it from the sun. So this is like several, steps down the road from the origin of light. And same thing with anything. Let's say you're going to burn um, uh, a log of fire. You're going to burn a log of wood in your fireplace. That is also stored up light that once was flowing and it is not flowing anymore. What happened? A plant photosynthesized it and turned it into this miraculous molecule called glucose. So that's going to be for next week. We're going to talk all about glucose because this really relates to your body and your light body. So, of course, when I do sessions with people, I teach them about their anatomy of their physical body and how this overlaps with your light body. Your light body is not just like a bubble that's around you and that people call your aura. And then you could go and have photography taken, aura photography at the state fair or whatever like that, that will tell you what your light body, what color it is. Maybe it's like whatever, reddish green or something like that. But no, your light body is your information body. And there are crossovers, and this is not part of my notes, but something that I can share with you, between your physical anatomy and your body of pure information. So some of those crossovers are going to be obvious to you, like your retinas are part of your light body. You're like, duh, I know. And your optic nerve. These things are part of perceiving light. But you know what else is part of your light body? Your skin. You're like, Aurora, well, I mean, my skin gets tan when I'm in the presence of light. That's correct, because your skin is part of ingesting light and more. The sebaceous glands that are acting in your skin are part of your interface with the world of light. Your skin, when it is dry and doesn't have oils on it, does not ingest light as effectively as when you put oils on it. It changes the reflective nature of the outside of your skin. There's a reason why you have these oils. They're an interface between your body and the world of pure light, so that way you can absorb light better into your body. And also, all of these little tiny hairs that are covered in oil on the outside of your body are antenna to the sun, and they are part of absorbing light from the world of pure light. Let's also talk about microtubuli. This is the tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic little fiber optic networks in your body that are made out of collagen and naturally occurring structures. So none of these are like anything transhumanistic or anything bad like that. We don't have to talk about any of that bad stuff. This is the naturally occurring version. And please comprehend that all of the negative stuff in the world, it's all an imposter of the real realm. The false light is always an imposter of the world of pure light. So in your light body, you have these little tiny tendrils that go all throughout, very, very delicate network, and they transmit light. And what Earth's scientists, medicine healers are just starting to comprehend is that when you are connecting in your light body, there is no time in the transmission of signal from one part of your body to another. So there's some good work about healing patients. Like if you shine a colored light on a person's shoulder, it takes zero amount of time for that light to go through their pancreas and also go to their hip bone. Like your whole light body receives that light at the same time. It is information. And once you start to comprehend that your light body transmits all light, all information to every part of your body at the same time, then you're really in your light body, you're in your frequency body, and then you are much less accepting is not the word, but you become very allergic and have very strong boundaries to things that aren't supposed to be in your environment. And so moving beyond materialism and moving into your light body means that you start to become very sensitive and perceptive to things that are pure frequency. That can be things that are non-physical, things that are pulses, things that have or like rhythmic natures of things, because these are energy, these are frequencies, and they all, that's part of information. So definitely sounds, rhythmic sounds, and music is part of information. Think about all the sounds that are in your environment that are rhythmic. They are not information, they are noise. Now I'm going to rant a little bit. You know, it's one of my least favorite sounds. They have these supposedly energy efficient, like leaf blowers and things like that, that are mandatory in my neighborhood. Like they used to have the old, inefficient little gas powered ones that sounded like a chainsaw, but now they have these ones that are like, they sound so annoying. They have this high pitched kind of like vacuum cleaner like whine. And every Saturday morning, like all the gardeners are out in the neighborhood and they're all using these leaf blowers, and all you hear are these like disharmonic sounds. It's so agitating to my light body. It's the opposite of nice music. Okay. Now let's talk about, so that you can tell from your light body. You're like, yeah, that sounds terrible. Like, shut it up now. Now let's talk about something that is the opposite of that and leave a better taste in your mouth. How about the sound of birds? Like when I wake up in the morning, it's a beautiful clear sky, and I start to hear these little birds chirping and singing outside. That is a sound I could listen to forever. I'm like, that is a beautiful sound. And why do I have that response? Why does my light body respond to it in that way? It's not just that the frequency is tuned to a nicer frequency. It is because birds naturally are, tuning their song to a naturally pleasant frequency, as opposed to the, whine of the vacuum cleaner that's going on next door. But it's also the feeling that the bird has, the essence of its communication, the joy of its self-expression. All of that is a quality of light. All of that is a quality of why your light body would want to ingest that light, as opposed to listening to a loud machine for many hours a day. These are two qualitatively different experiences. So I bring this up because in this world that you're coming out of, it might be considered like a positive or productive activity. Get out there and use that leaf blower. Be loud in the neighborhood. Make that loud noise that you're supposed to make. And like, I don't think that it's a socially positive thing to do at all. So someone wants someone to do it. Someone is paying someone to do it. But those are both bad activities, bad motivation, and bad technologies being used. And also, all of the dogs agree with me. Because when these guys get going with their lawn loud things, all the dogs are barking in the neighborhood. And that's because, like most humans, also, this is a good analogy for the light body, are like not very sensitive with your hearing. I have really sensitive hearing. That's part of why I'm a musician. So I hear a lot of things that other people don't even hear, but like the dogs can hear what's going on. And the dogs are like, woof, 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 like you humans, Saturday morning, like, can't you just quiet down? I don't like this very much at all. And I completely agree. So when you are more aware of your light body and the parts of your physical body that are perceptive to frequency, and also the way that you connect to the continuum of frequency in your environment, you are not going to take this stuff anymore. You're not going to accept or allow yourself to be surrounded by negative or non-life affirming frequencies. Your body will literally tell you, like, that is bad frequency. And so also, like, when these dogs are always barking, then the owners are always like, you naughty dogs, like, stop. They never pay attention. And I'm also telepathic with dogs. And I'm always like, no, like, your dogs are trying to tell you, like, your gardeners are too loud. But I didn't say that with my words. I am saying that with telepathically to them. They all are very foolish. And sometimes I'm very frustrated in life. Okay. Thank you for allowing my hydration break here. Okay, so a lot of what I'm doing in some of these sharing of different perspectives is expecting or helping you to do different mental exercises, from being an observer on the side of the road to being in the center of the road and actually joining the marathon, or shifting your viewpoint from being an embodied entity viewing multiple different stars all spread across the night sky, to being, what does it look like when all of those stars are overlapping in one place? Because it's not just your star here in the sky that is Sol, the sun of the solar system, that is sending out reality networks and potentials. It's all of these stars. They are all connected, overlapping. The words don't even convey what I'm actually trying to convey. Synonymous is maybe a different way of saying it, but they are so interwoven that you must take one as the whole. So talking about a photon is a convention. You really must take the entire continuum of light. Talking about one star within the entire fabric of all the stellar network is also a convention because there's not really a way to take one star. So objective materialist science wants you to look at a brain and say, here is one neuron and one cell in a brain. But really, you can't do that. You have to look at the entirety. And the stellar network is a brain, is an entirety. And what you're looking at with that is the sending of signals between different stars. So it made sense to you when like one star is point A and another star is point B, and the sending of light is going between them. But it is harder for you when those two places have no space between them. But you can still communicate between two organisms or individuations, even when there is no space between them. So now we talk a little bit, and we'll return to this too in the economy of light. What is it like to be in this path of light, in this continuum of light? What does it look like? There are levels of your own individuated self, and then there are aspects of the larger ocean of consciousness that you find yourself within, and you do not lose your individuation or formfulness even while you carry out or perform a task or function within that larger system. So the garden hose in your garden is a molecular tool that carries water from one place to another. There is the molecular reality of the air, the molecular reality of the tube of the garden hose, and the molecular reality of the water. And each of those realities maintains the truthfulness of its reality in order for the water to get from point A to point B. If the garden hose did not maintain its molecular integrity during this experience, you would have a blending of realities. The water would blend with the hose and it would blend with the atmosphere, and none of the water would get where it's supposed to. And we call that dissolving. The garden hose would dissolve. You are not meant to dissolve as an individuated presence. When you are on this bullet train of infinity, moving super fast, when you're embedded in the world of light, when you're on the fun run, you do not stop being an individual. You are still an individuated presence. That means like you're the garden hose and you maintain your structural integrity in order to carry or transport energy from where it needs to go to where it needs to be. That is a big part of your job. And when you transport that energy or send it effectively, then that is how you have an ever increasing amount of light in the world, or an immeasurable amount of light. So you're sending information from one place to another place. And this has everything to do with your DNA. I've said many, many times your DNA is a bridge of light, and also the sanctity of your own genetic library as it transmits information down the road of time. Not only through biological procreation, it's easy to see like, I've passed on my brown eyes to my child who now has the same brown eyes as me. That is DNA transferring information, but also within your own body structure. Because my eyeball cells of today are not the same as my eyeball cells from 10 years ago. I have transmitted that information to the cellular generation of this generation of my body. So your DNA is a bridge of light to transfer and transport information accurately down the road of time. And anything that distorts or hijacks that natural behavior of DNA, transmitting your biological reality and your cognitive reality through time, is something that is reducing or attacking the amount of light in the world. So I don't want to talk about it that much, but any experiments that involve genetic modification or proliferation of cells in different cultures and petri dishes, which is what a lot of negative exploratory objective materialist science efforts do, is not good to do. It's very, very bad. And it doesn't actually help you to learn more about what the actual fabric of reality is shaped like. Here's how you learn about what the fabric of reality is shaped like, okay? First of all, you have to get into a receptive mind state. that means like kind of like put your cares and worries and to-do list and chores and stuff to the side for a moment. And then you have to like get in your lawn chair, get in a hammock, or float in the bathtub, or like sit quietly. Or sometimes I get it when I'm like walking my dog and have my headphones on and just listening to music or whatever. Like you have to get out of your mundane workaday reality and go into a different receptive mind state, and then put your tendril of attention on actual light. This is what I mean when I say take refuge in the path of light. So I'm going to, of course, I know you guys are saying questions and stuff, and I've just been very focused on my notes that way I'm getting all the important stuff, and I'll get into your questions and comments later. But really, for the next couple of weeks, make it a meditative intention and choice that all throughout you can all around you and throughout your day, place your attention on light itself. Okay, so even artificial light contains some quotient of intelligence and information, even if not the full amount of nutrients and vitamins that the original light had, but it has some light in there. So you can learn a little something when you have a candle or a light bulb in your room, but you really learn the most when you're in the presence of natural light, which is the sun. Okay. And also, I've talked a lot in session work about how people can improve the health of their retinas by not exposing themselves excessively to blue light that comes off the computer, basically false light. Okay, so for comprehending your journey and optimizing yourself on the path of light, it's essential to optimize your environment and surround yourself with real light. So this is not a part of my curriculum, but just sensible intentions to help you to optimize who you are and to grow more effectively. Yeah. So you grow more effectively when you are presented with truth, actual information. So like everything that I read on the computer is not truthful and accurate information. And I'm very allergic to it because I read stuff and I'm like, that's not true. That's not true. That is really not true. And again, like if neighbors are watching me on my balcony, I'm sure that they have quite a laugh because I'm sure I say the most ridiculous things. I'm like, I read something, I'm like, that's not true. But it's because I'm intentionally ejecting it out of me. I don't want to ingest that light. Okay. As opposed to when I do my sun gazing, where I spend time in the sun with the real sun, absorbing it into my body, like, through my actual skin and through my actual eyes, I don't have to have that same type of filter for erroneous concepts and non-wholesome idea structures because I'm eating real light. I'm eating real ingredients. Oh, sushi is one of the most amazing foods in the world. And one of the things I like about it is you don't have to cut around anything. Everything is like a perfectly designed tidbit. You just put that whole thing in your mouth and you just eat everything. Very, very different than a fish with bones, right? Where you have to be like, cut this part away, this is the part that you eat. Don't choke on this. This is the deadly part. So yeah, eating the sunlight and in a pristine, beautiful, pure environment is really just ingesting pure truth. And that, we'll return to this over and over through this class. That is what the experience is like when you're on the path of light. So first of all, you start to accelerate and get faster. And that fastness, that inner speed is created by, and that momentum is created by and sustained by information. And then you maintain that level of speed or movement and engagement with time by receiving more information. It is exactly like being a plant. So when you have a little tiny sprout that comes out of a seed and it comes out of the ground, it only can take a little bit of light. It's only got two tiny little leaves. It doesn't have a giant, whatever amount of foliage. And you can't put it in the middle of the noonday sun. It will fry, and you have to protect it and give it like its little sheltered thing. And then it has to slowly photosynthesize and grow more leaves to be able to eat more light. You do something very, very similar. And there are reasons why we are shown this pattern in our environment. That is part of the light that is woven into the information that is woven into the fabric of the ecosystem. Pardon me while I continually hydrate here. It is totally not accidental that you have this geometric progression. When you grow plants, you really learn this. Like First, it sprouts and there's two little leaves, and then you have to protect it. And then it grows two more leaves, and then you protect it, and it grows two more leaves. But each one gets incrementally bigger and bigger and bigger. And the whole entire thing scales up and scales up and scales up until finally, by June, you can put that thing in the middle of the yard and it can get noonday sun. It's going to thrive and it's going to feel great. Okay. Your light body is the same way, where you have to start off with the amount of information that you can perceive and ingest and process as a tiny little seedling, where you only have two little leaves. And it's like, don't overwhelm me with too much stuff. I'm going to die. All right. Don't worry, you're not going to die. No, you get protected. And you also get the information is stepped down so that it's not too overwhelming to you. And then you grow as consciousness and you evolve. And then you emit more leaves to be able to ingest more light. So your version of growing more leaves is having a faster inner metabolism. Like you're able to know more things, be wiser about those things, and process your emotional response to those things much faster. And this means you're able to ingest more light, know more about your environment, process that, and send it back to the sun in your sun gazing rapport and be able to say, oh, here's everything that I just experienced. Here it is back to you. And this can be very joyous too, because I want to use the analogy of like if you've ever been in a band where it's like jazz improv type of thing where someone does a little melody or a little percussion and then they throw it over to you and you're like, bazinga. And then you make your little melody and then you throw it over to the next guy. In the spontaneity and the generation of these patterns, the response to one another, this gets to be feeling very, very positive and good. So please know that you have been in a non-optimum environment, but as you optimize, this back and forth starts to feel really good. And then the inner growth is a very positive experience, not inner growth through suffering or torment. None of that helps you grow. Doesn't help you grow. And also, whenever I grow a garden, I try to optimize the experiences for my little plants. I'm not like, okay, like, I'm not going to water you for a couple of days. That will optimize your growth. Like, no, that is how you kill your plants. You help them to grow by making sure that they have what they need and making sure that, it is available to them when they need it. So that is really the sun and the stars are trying to optimize your growth. They're like, we're trying to get information through to you. There have been a lot of things that have waylaid or stuck information on its journey. Some things were blocked out through atmospheric pollutions. Some things were blocked out through cognitive pollutions. As these cognitive pollutions or inner barriers are removed, sometimes you are able to perceive things and think about things that you're like, how could I not have known about that or thought about that? It's right in front of my big giant face the whole time. And all of a sudden you can think it. It's not your fault. Please be compassionate to yourself. There have been a lot of inner genetic modifications that happen to humanity to cloud or reduce your vision or obscure what you can see and know. And also a lot of things that were culturally implanted. And then, like I said, even here in this time space, there are technological impediments, not just clouds, but like molecular and chemical clouds that come between people and the connection to the stars. The creation and intention for this system was that the information to feed you and to guide you from a tiny seedling all the way up to the level of being a master who can master matter was meant to be like right there, right in front of your face, something that you could never miss. And please know that it's only been through an enormous amount of intentional anti-engineering against this experience that has created such a distorted reality. Like at this moment, it takes an enormous amount of effort to connect the stars. It's supposed to be something that is so innate and inevitable that not that it's easy, but that it happens as a matter of inevitability. So here it's like you have to try very, very hard, but it was actually designed as a system where it would be, like I said, inevitable and you would connect because it's literally in front of your face all the time. So what's another thing, I've talked about pollution, like particulate and cognitive, but there's also something called light pollution, which is where you simply have an overabundance of nonsense. that blocks out the real information. What is nonsense? Streetlights. It's just stupid lights that people put on the highway so that that way they can see where they're driving. These are not brilliant points of consciousness. And if you have enough of these silly streetlights, then you can't see and receive and hear information from all of the stars that are actually there who are virtuosos or like PhD level experts with real light to give to you for you to comprehend. So the streetlights not only are like electric and uninformative, but they have a saturation effect on your retinas that desensitizes your retinas to be able to feel the light that actually comes from the sun and the stars, that is actually bespoke and customized to you, that is actually going to give you real power, empowerment, and uplift. So that's the equivalent of like there might be some nutrition on a plate, but then it's also covered with so much inedible stuff that you can't possibly plow through that and eat. Like, here's the 2 molecules of actual food because there's all of this, whatever, like gravel, something you could never chomp through that would be harmful if you even tried. Okay, so don't worry, I'm going to get to more questions, but here's an important one to think about. What about the apparent space between the singularity points that is in between the stars? All right, that space becomes a curved object. So when you're looking at the night sky, you're like, here's a star here, a star here, a star here, and then kind of envision that the rest is just fabric or whatever, like some kind of an aquarium that these stars are floating within. That's linear space. But what happens to all of the space that is in between that separates out all of these stars from being on top of each other? When you bring these stars together, that space becomes curved. And so what you're looking at now is the higher dimensional viewpoint. I drew it as this type of expanding daisy, but you have to think of it as a very ruffled and floriferous surface that has caverns and other forms of, I want to say, almost like croissants or crescents that go through it. So I show you simplified line drawings in my baby steps animations because like I'm not making a whole animation, but I expect you, because you guys are good students with your mind, to add to that the sense that it's not just a line, it's a whole curved piece of space. It kind of reminds me of what happens when you make like a ruffled collar, like the fancy folk used to wear in the 16th century, a ruffled collar of all of these folds of complex fold convoluted flutes of fabric that all fit together. That is what you're really seeing when you see all of these stars fit together. So you have not just one that is emitting a reality structure, you have them all overlapping and on top of one another. They are all emitting these complementary reality structures, and the complementary reality structures are constantly causing time and space to kind of like blob out and blob back in and blob out in new shapes and blob back in. You're looking at something that is dynamic and, of course, multidimensional and is constantly growing and changing. And the evolution or fine tuning of the story that it tells as it grows and changes is the increase in the amount of light. This is why you have an immeasurable amount of light, because the narrative structure is always growing. Again, I have to always make this little contrast. Like, you're used to a world where the narrative structure does not make sense. That's why I'm yelling at the news in the morning, because I'm like, that does not make sense. And I am personally enraged at your stupid story that doesn't make sense. But in the larger world of light, where I'm trying to, bring your mind and tell you about this, everything does make sense. There's actually continuity, non-randomness, and causality structures. Causality structures means things happen because things happen. This thing happened over here because this thing happened over here. And these two things are connected. That is also how you can comprehend that as you change and fine tune a reality structure, you can't just change this part over here. It's going to proliferate through the entire structure. So when you start to fine tune reality, you're like, okay, this painting doesn't look good, like too much red, and you take away red over here. It takes away red through the whole entire reality structure. Turn down the volume on red. You're like, okay, now we need more blue. then you have to put blue throughout the whole entire reality structure. Okay. I already got, I'm looking at my notes. If I seem distant, apologies of that. And also, okay, so as I'm going to start to describe these to you, concepts to you some more, I'm also going to make drawings. And actually, let me just do a little bit of this where I'm going to show you. Oh no, I already pressed something wrong. Oh my God, I don't know what's happening. Stop. I have so much trouble. Okay, let's try again. Gonna do this, guys. Okay, as a convention, I often draw the fabric of space-time as if it is shaped like a flat plane or a table like this. And I draw these checkerboard lines to show you the fabric of both space and time, okay? But what is more truthful about the way that reality is shaped is that it is spherical. So that would look like this. And then those same lines, even though my pen is part of the reason why I draw it in the other way, I don't have the same dexterity to be able to show it, but I'm trying to draw lines of latitude and longitude. That is what you're really experiencing. So, like at times in this class, I will draw a black hole as if here is a cross section of reality. There's reality, here's a deep, deep black hole, and then here's reality again, right? And that this goes all the way down. That's a cross section, right? Like you're looking at a cutaway version. So I'm going to ask you to have like a lot of visual intelligence. But really, what I'm drawing when I draw that is all of the fabric of space-time is going towards the center, not just a cutaway like that, but really something that is spherical, all going to a black hole that is at the center. So that would look like this. If here in this diagram, if all of these lines were going towards the middle, going towards the middle, going towards the middle. That is what a black hole is. So again, a lot of my diagrams, if I actually drew them as a sphere, would be incomprehensible to you. So you will have to conceive of them as if they are a sphere, even while seeing that I'm drawing them as a something that's easy to see as if it's a flat plane. Let me just look at my notes one more time. Pardon me for reading while I'm looking at this. Oh, okay. And so then the other thing is what happens when the photon is observed. And I already talked with you about that. So when there is a cognitive presence, that is the experiencer, the photon is reflected back to the sun or the star that emanated it. And there is a bridge of consciousness or a consciousness cognitive event. Um, 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 so in the previous linear model, not only would light continue forward endlessly unless it meets an object, but if it comes inside of you, the concept would be like light is bouncing. So I'm not saying it's correctly. In the linear model, light is bouncing off of like woof, light is coming from a star that's 93 million miles away. That little piece of light has to travel very far, and then it gets to my face, and it bounces off of my face, and then somehow goes through this camera and then into your eyes. Then you have an experience of perceiving something that you send as a cognitive event to the sun. And the sun is like, oh, got that piece of light that I sent out. And you were able to see there's a person like on a screen standing there and doing stuff. But now, okay, and we're going to get more into this. I'll talk about this in some subsequent lessons. I'm just going to lay it all on you. Okay, in the same way that you had the overlapping of all of those stars, I have to do my whole little thing, drawing all of these again. So here is the star, and then let's just make the lines a little bit fatter. Singularity, and then around singularity, here is photon, right? Right? So how about you? Where is you? Where are you? in this diagram. Let's draw you. Get a nice color. Let's make it green. This is you. And I'm going to make like a little person shaped like that. Where's the planet? It's true. Blue is going to be the color of the planet. And I'll try to be consistent through all of my drawings. Here's the planet. Okay, so you have a singularity inside of you. You actually have many multiples. And the planet has singularity inside of itself. And the star has singularity inside of itself. And all of these stars, of course, are all overlapping on that particular star. So this is an accurate diagram in my new way of showing things, to be able to show what is happening with light. Light is not coming from a star. Let's just get a light color here. Light is not coming like from a star and bouncing over here, bouncing off of a thing and then bouncing into your eye and then having an experience. That is not what light is doing. Light is doing this. It is creating a narrative structure. And you, the green person, and you, the planet, and you, the star, are all experiencing this structure. And this structure, again, is a narrative or an abstract of things that can happen, and you are all experiencing it. In this story, a narrative telling of things that can happen, one of the things that can happen is you perceive something, like you perceive the planet, or you look at a tree, or you look at an object, or you are perceived. And that is transmitted back to the sun. All right, so we're all doing a lot of heavy lifting and thinking very, very deep thoughts here. Let's all take a moment to stop thinking deep thoughts and just hug a small dog. Let's hug Cheeky. Hey, Cheeky just woke up from a nap. Let's say hi, Princess Cheeky. Don't worry, we have bribes. We have bribes for Cheeky. We're ready for class. We knew that this would happen, but we have to take a cognitive break for a moment, and you got to do that. All right, good. Yeah, so things that you can always think about if you're ever like, oh, I have a few minutes to think about infinity. Think about the profundity of singularity. Like singularity is inside of dog. Singularity is inside of me. Singularity is inside of tree. Singularity is inside of sun. And these things are actually supposedly or illusorily separated by space, but really we are not separated at all. Actually all coexist or exist, I want to say overlapping, not on top of one another, but we exist as overlapping reality structures. Somebody just made mental connections. That makes me feel really happy. Good. So you're already getting out of the flawed linear mind state and getting into this expansive non-linear mind state. Here, I'll pause things for just 1 second so that way I can give somebody some cookies. Hold on. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Someone needs cookies. Maybe you all need cookies. Thank you for that little break. Okay, now, I'm sorry, I know I make such silly faces to be able to read this stuff. Okay, Aurelia says, this is so relatable and so amazing to see how well you articulate these abstractions. Thank you. Oh my goodness. So I've had to try very hard to be able to do this. And I think that I did end up coming up with a good way to be able to create new diagrams and be able to describe to you what is happening. But I'll see if it gets more confusing as I go on and share more. Okay, Chris says, question regarding singularity. Are you familiar with the concept known as the Partiki unit? No, let me squint and read this more. He says singularity or partiki, which is antimatter. This is different than antimatter. Okay, A-N-T-E, maybe like pre-matter, which is not the same as anti-matter, matter that is the opposite of. I love this. And polarizes into partika. Okay, this is amazing, which he says is contraction, sound, vibration, and magnetic off. And particum, which is expansion, light, oscillation, and electric on. I have not heard of this way of being able to think about things. The concept of pre-matter is valid. It is the sense of frequency or the potential for matter before it is actually perceived as matter. The best thing I can give you is the concept that matter is a biological vagary that is defined by your senses. That really the interesting exploratory envelope is where you define what is matter versus what is something that is not matter. So, like, let's use heat as an example, because heat is something that you sense with your light body of your skin. So you're going to say it's something that I feel, but it doesn't have weight to it. Matter is something that has mass or weight to it. So heat, like you can feel it, because we're going to say, like, how can you tell if something is real? Like, can you feel it? Like, you can feel heat, but it does not have a heft or a mass or a presence in the world. It is so bleh, difficult to come up with words in order to be able to say that. So I will come at it from a different direction. Electrons do not have mass, but they do carry electricity, which is a type of energy. So electrons are not experiencing space. In order for something to be defined as matter by us with our biological body, we say, does it take up space? But you're like, okay, how about a photon? The photon is flying across space, but actually it is not experiencing space. It's just experiencing time. So it is making this narrative structure, but it is not experiencing time. It's not experiencing space. I said the wrong thing, and that's because my mind went in order to be able to give you this picture. All right. When you look at the night sky, you see glowing star here, dark empty space, and then something else over here, like a planet or a moon or something like that. The light is actually traveling and traversing that whole entire area, but you're not seeing it. It is an implied trajectory. The only thing that you're seeing is the origin of the light and the destination of the light. And that's because the light is not illuminating the entire presence in between there. If it were, you would see like a long beam of light, like where my pencil is. Here's the beginning, here's a giant glowing beam of light, and then here's the end of that. You don't see that. You see the glowing beginning, dark, empty space, and then wherever that light falls upon in the end. So this is a story that is told to your cognitive mind. It's almost like the light gets into a magical car, goes into a tunnel, skips all this stuff, and then pops out over here. Like, because this is where I'm starting to ask you to examine your cultural projections and worldviews. Most people have academic training and education and perceive of the world as, oh, even though I don't see this long string of light, I know that it came out of the sun and somehow got to here. But that is different than a totally sensory based viewpoint of reality where it's not running through your interpretation structure. In your interpretation structure, like, well, I see this glowing thing up there in the sky, and then I see that there's nothing, and then I see like whatever, the lawn chair outside is also similarly glowing. And then it is a very flimsy story to say, well, the glowing thing in the sky is making a long line of stuff that is then making the chair be glowing over here too. I don't think I did a very good job there, but I'm trying to get you to examine your sensory preconceptions. If you were a tiny child and you looked at the world before someone took you to school and taught you, oh, light is emerging from the sun or being emitted from the sun is bouncing off of this object over here, and that's why you're perceiving it, you wouldn't tell yourself that story. You'd be like, wow, like this thing is glowing. Look at all the light coming off of this thing. This is the impression of what it's like when you're a tiny child. And then through education, you're taught, well, not you, through education, humans are taught to view the world in a particular way. And then when you look at the night sky, you're interpreting what you see through that experienced lens, or through that, I would say that rather, expectation lens, what I expect to be there. So you also expect that if you get into a clank metal spaceship, that you can somehow fly to the space that is between this star and this star that is point A and point B. But I am here to tell you that experts do not do star travel that way. You do not get into a clank metal spaceship because there's technically not a space to go there to. And it is a mania, a florid inflammation in your brain, and an inherent wrongness to think that you can do that. That is That's crazy, girl. You can't do that. But a lot of humans are stuck on that mania. So, um, first of all, experts do star travel by getting onto the path of light. When you're on the path of light, you don't want to be in the dead zone between stars. You want to be actually on the connective integument experience that is the area of stars and livingness, not in what you would perceive as the area where the photon is flying between point A and point B, or where there is no thing. When you're on the bullet train of infinity, you are with everyone else who is moving at light speed, and there is no thing around you that is not moving at light speed, because that stuff doesn't exist. So no thing, nothing, no thing non-exists around you because it has no presence, because it does not move at the speed of light and faster. And the speed of light and faster is the speed of intelligence, or the speed of perception, or the speed of correctness. You're moving out of this realm of materialism and slowness and moving into a world of pure frequency and vastness. And that is the redefinition of life and of experience. You will still experience the world, but now, because you're experiencing the world of accelerated matter, your mind wants to say, oh, I'm getting out of the physical world. But heat and electricity and magnetism are all force fields of the physical world that are not physical matter. So, according to your scientific viewpoint and materialism, you're still going to be a part of the world of matter, or the materiality world, but not of matter that is physical. You're going to be a part of the world of pure energy. And there is a distinction to be made between the type of energy that is the energy of the physical world, five senses reality, and the type of energy that is the energy of higher dimensional abstraction, which is the energy of time. So the five senses realm is defined by objective materialists who are embedded within time, but cannot see and perceive time as a higher dimensional experience. And then the realm of actual abstraction contains heat, light, information. All of that is within the physicality realm, but then you also have time that is outside of the physicality realm. The physical energy is held within the container of time. Where does physical energy live, everyone? It lives in time. What is the bucket that contains physical energy? It is contained within time, okay? So time is the larger abstraction that contains the abstraction of physical energy. And the answer is yes. When you expand your perception enough, you also perceive time as a type of bucket that is held within a larger abstraction, and that's called hyperspace. You're good. You're going to get there. You're going to get there. Okay, let me hydrate a little bit more, read more good questions. So just checking my audio settings. Thank you. And always tell me if you guys hear staticky noise in the background, because I have to turn that on so that way you can hear music. And then I try to remember to turn it off so that way you get the default. Thank you for that. And I'll always make sure to be conscientious about that. Okay, good. Chris says, yes. There is a primal sound, which is pre-sound, and there's primal light, which is pre-light, and then it is singularity, or the Partiki unit mentioned above. Okay, I will say respectfully that I don't really know about the Partiki unit or anything that is about that. So perhaps it is interesting, but it's not how I talk about these things, but it might be interesting and valid in its own right. So I certainly don't want to invalidate it. But since it gave rise to the distinction between pre-matter as opposed to antimatter, I have to now speak a little bit against the scientific presumption or florid make up a story called dark matter, which I think you all really have to be skeptical of. But like with dark matter, you should be like, no. So because matter exists and there are questions about the calculation that objective materialist science would like to use in assessing how much matter actually exists in the world. And because they have a discrepancy in their expectation and calculation versus what they see in reality, they're like, we have to make up something called dark matter, and that will help to balance things out. So none of that is helpful. So you don't have to make up extra types of matter, but I know that that is different, Chris, than what you're talking about. But I'm just taking this moment to speak about this. But no, you don't have to try to imagine a balancing force of this different type of matter to make up for what regular matter is doing. This also relates to the flaw and the presumption of many quantum physicists who talk about position and superposition. Superposition is not just what is happening from Superman, like Superman, superposition. It's the sense that there's some kind of a symmetry in time. Like if this is the midline, the center of time, and every time there is a particle that's moving in this way and in this trajectory with this amount of mass, that then there's another particle that is moving in this way, in this trajectory with this amount of anti-mass. And this is nonsense type of thought structure. So I have not really delved enough into these particular type of, I want to say, psychiatric viewpoints that are actually from academia in order to be able to deflate them and be like, this is exactly what's wrong with it. But I will just tell you, like, it's not an accurate viewpoint. And so I didn't delve further. Like, that music is not correct. Because I try to get these scientists guys, because when they're starting to comprehend superposition, they're almost ready to comprehend lasagna, but sometimes they're very stuck in there. So because one time I went to a scientific expose that was talking all about this, and I approached the person to try to tell them about lasagna, but I think maybe I got through, maybe I didn't get through. Okay. And Chris says, oh, yes, you explained frequency bands that are synchronized or particle phasing with all cells instantly. Just got this download about 2 hours ago. Thank you for confirmation. Okay, good to know. Wonderful. So I'm not sure how this relates to your concept, but in the world of pure light, and in your light body, information is transmitted instantaneously without a time lag. So the erroneous and materialistic view and definition of light is that it takes time for it to flow from point A to point B. But the more accurate consciousness-based truth is that there is no time for light to flow from point A to point B. It is experienced at point A and point B and all of these other places. And I hesitate to say the word places, like my brain gets very challenged in trying to be able to talk about these things at the same time. Okay, so here's a better way of talking about this. All right, jump out of your rational mind. Envision a photon. The photon is a convention, a glowing ball of energy that is, a single spherical object. But when you start to look inside of that glowing ball of energy, you realize it is really a tunnel. It's not a solid sphere. It's a thing that you can go into. And as you start to look into it, you see the story of where that photon was 5 seconds ago. Like, oh, like you were just doing this. And then you go deeper into that tunnel and you find out where it was 1 year ago. Then you go deeper into that tunnel, like you're going to the epicenter, the Tootsie Roll center of the delicious photon. And inside of there, you find the story of where it was 100 years ago, all the way back to the origin of light or the origin of time. And every single photon, which again is a convention, but think of it in this way, contains the entirety story of all light, from wherever light emerged initially into where that piece of light is right now. So each photon would contain a unique viewpoint or a unique synopsis of its journey, because it's always going to be, because it's like I did all of this, but then here's the photon where it's like, well, I did all of this plus this and this too, and then this guy's like, I beat all of you, I did this plus 10 additional things, but it's the same journey that they are all adding to. And so this relates a little bit to some conventional physics, totally not an endorsement of the man, but there was a physicist named Richard Feynman who had promoted an idea that there was really only one photon, or I've also heard it called one electron. It makes more sense of a photon, constantly emitting itself into reality, having experiences, and then going backwards, rewind the tape, go back to the beginning, and then emitting itself again and embroidering reality with these continual emissions. It's not totally accurate, but it's starting to get there. So again, not a total endorsement of Feynman the person, because he was a troubled person with strange personal habits, but a fascinating mind in that he was able to perceive partial amounts of reality. So it is truthful that the light is being emitted into these time loops and convolutions, and then those loops and convolutions are being reflected back to the source, and then the photon is emitted again. Pardon me. So what you would really see when you look into the center of a photon is, well, this is who I was in this version of reality. All of these loops were emitted and all this stuff happened, and then that reality went back to this. But then a new version of reality was written. And in that version of reality, I did this, and this, and then this is what happened. And then a new version of reality was written. In this version of reality, this, and this happened. And then it went back to here. And each of these versions of reality is an iteration or an evolution where it is being focused and fine-tuned towards optimization. And optimization is not random or arbitrary or only self-serving of one thing. It is optimized for light and for the increase in light. Humans and people like Dan Winter would call this a negative entropy event. So he uses that word neg entropy. That's why I bring him up. Neg entropy means something that increases in organization. So materialist science is inherently flawed because it has the presumption of a inevitable and inexorable increase in entropy at all times. But that is not even truthful in your biological realm. This is why this is such a flawed proposal. So it comes from the sense of the Big Bang being the scientific viewpoint, starting point, and origin point for the organizational principle of matter, and having the most amount of energy, and then a de-evolution from that moment. Or the sense that, like, you started out at the higher levels of energy, and then from there, everything is getting less and less and less. So science looks at, like, the initial Big Bang proposed fantasy moment. It's not actually what really happened, but a moment of intense heat, intense agitation, intense dynamism. And then from there, there's not even matter because everything is so effing hot and moving so much. From there, it gets cooler and cooler and cooler, and then you start to get matter, and cooler and cooler and cooler, you start to get planets and stars and stuff and life. And then science proposes, then at a certain point, it will all poop out. You'll have no more energy, and you're kaput. You're done. I'm top of my cigar. Game over, kid. And that is not what is happening. So that is described as the clockwork vision, or the description of the universe, like a clock that has been wound up at the beginning of time, and then it is slowly losing its spring, and then you're kaput at the end of time. And that's called the entropic heat death at the end of time, according to science. What is truthful is that all of reality is not an entropy event, inexorably moving towards disorganization and less consciousness. That's completely the opposite of everything that I'm trying to tell you, especially here today, which is that light is continually expanding or increasing, and that's why it is immeasurable. So just look at the sense of birth in this world, like mammalian live birth, that is such a negative entropy event, or it's an organization. Like, people are not just random collections of, like, ice cream and tacos that your mom ate when you were pregnant, and then out comes a person. Like, that does not happen. You put ice cream and tacos together in a bag and you do not get a baby. Like, that does not happen. There is some higher organizational principle that takes the light energy and the potentials of molecular, organic sustenance of pickles and tacos and ice cream, and takes the puzzle pieces apart and puts them together in the shape of a human. And out comes a baby. That is a unlikelihood of the greatest degree. And it happens so often that is one of these miraculous things that humans and science and medical science almost take for granted. And it is the complete unlikelihood and a complete miracle. So live birth is a complete miracle. Even this, a seed, germination of a seed, that is a miracle. Whenever I take on projects, I always learn so much from it. It's why I do what I do. So I have a very diverse life. I'm not always doing the same thing and making my paintings or my music. I'm always challenging myself. And for a little while, I focused on growing microgreens and sprouts. And so from that journey, I learned so much about germination. Like, seeds are miracles. They contain the potential for life. When you germinate them or add, the correct light to their environment, then greater levels of organization step forward. And these are non-binary bizarre or non-random levels of organization. It's all very intentional. So please wipe away any expectation that the world is devolving or moving into less levels of organization, and come with the presumption that our world is moving into greater levels of organization. And the most accurate way of thinking about things is that there really are two different groups. Dun, dun. There are the groups of you, like people in this beautiful class, and I appreciate you all so much for moving towards energy. That's towards organization. What does that mean? It means that you are growing and evolving. You're making your bodies fitter and healthier. You're growing your physical muscles. You're getting faster on an inner metabolic level. That means that it takes less time between when you touch the stove and you figure out that it's hot and you should not touch the stove again, right? And that can be relationships or mistakes or whatever's going on. And you're also growing and evolving in the sense of relinquishing paradigms and worldviews that are flawed or inadequate and embracing new worldviews and new ways of looking at things. All right. Let's contrast you with all the garbage that needs to go to entropy, all of the stuff that is not accelerating, all of the stuff that might have been flawed or inherently unworthy of being here, or stuff that might be obsolete. Maybe it once had a purpose, but it no longer has a purpose. All of that stuff is being de-energized. And if you are a person or an organism that identifies with the things that are being de-energized as self, then you would expect that the world is falling apart. Because you are a part of or identifying with that which is non-eternal and that which is meant to come out of existence. When you're on the path of light, you identify with everything that is eternal. And you can also recognize that that which is eternal is in a state of motion, self-exploration, and evolution, and is always growing, changing, evolving, and focusing. That's what this aspect of light emerging and then light returning. You see me get hung up on language a lot because I'm like, well, how can I say it with the right word? Because it's not like the light is coming off of the surface of the sun. The old model, here I'm a photon. I come off the surface of the sun and I fly all the way over to here, and then I come in through Aurora's window and go in through her eyeball. But this is not what the light is doing, because the light is staying home in its comfy pajamas. But the light is creating an expansion of reality and a story, and then it is coming back. So I'm going to wrap things up for today. This isn't the end of the class at all, but I'm going to plant some seeds for the next time we meet. I'm going to talk about the states of matter, all the way from a deep, dark, dense, you want to say chocolate, deep, dark, dense Bose-Einstein condensate, which is not as delicious as dark chocolate at all the way up through the states of matter, like solid, liquid, gaseous, all the way into a plasma, which is what the sun is, and plasma beings, and the flame of a fire is that, and then all the way up to a beam. So don't worry, I'm going to go through this in extensive detail, but this is to get your appetite going for next time we meet. But the important thing to comprehend is that the sun is a plasma, which is only a semi-organized ball of light. It's actually kind of, the light is going like this way, this way, this way, all over the place, and it's expanding and contracting, and it's doing all these different things. But that is different than a beam. A beam is very focused. So although the mindset that you have might be that like the sun is smarter than a little tiny photon, like I'm the big sun, like you're a little tiny photon, or like, the sun is like the papa bear and the photon is like the little baby bear going off into the woods or something like that. No, the sun is the less organized presence, and the photon is the beam that is the more organized presence. In this case, the parent or the emanator is not as organized as that which is emanated. And so again, these photons and beams of light are more intelligent or contain more light and more information than the larger semi-organized presence that emitted them. And those photons are directly responsible for photosynthesis, becoming part of matter, and photons are also responsible for other molecular and chemical events that define your physical reality, such as combustion. Combustion is when you add oxygen and heat, which is light, emerges. And also oxygenation, that's happening in your body right now. You're adding oxygen every time you breathe. And this helps you to have energy, which is light, that allows you to stay alive and move your arms and legs and make your flap and moving mouth parts talk. And there's also corrosion, which is oxidation, like when oxygen is added and it helps to change the state of metal, and you call this rust. And all of these things are the addition of intelligence or information or light that changes the state of matter. So we're going to resume next week. I'm going to bring more like wonder to your eyes as you're looking at things like when you look at a teapot that is boiling, adding information to the water, that things are becoming more organized. So we're going to leave behind the compare and contrast with the less organized presences and that which is garbage that is moving towards entropy, and fully embrace and coordinate with all of the parts, the moving parts of reality that are moving towards levels of greater organization. The parts that are made of light, that are accurate information, and that are more accurately interconnecting with one another and are adding up to a larger story or narrative that is filled with more information. And hopefully, like each one of you, like you're in this class for a reason, and I invite and celebrate you. And I'm so happy that you're here because you're the good ones. You're the consciousnesses and organisms who are moving towards greater levels of light and organization. And, you know, you can sometimes see this when the lighting is just right. This painting over here that is called Birth of a New Dimension. And I just talked to you about how mammalian birth is a negative entropy unlikelihood. Like birth means more organization. You're experiencing a planetary birth and a consciousness birth from levels of less organization into levels of greater organization. And the stuff that comes forward into the next level or layer of reality is all the stuff that is truthful, made of real light, sentience, filtering away or having condensed out anything that is erroneous or mistaken or not real light or not real consciousness. And these are the not only eternal things that come with you, but the things that have a lasting power to it. So also, please never take light for granted. People have said things like, as inevitable as the rising of the sun. And it's like, I don't take this stuff for granted. Like light is a miracle. A phenomenon is another good way of thinking of it. It is a phenomenon. And it's something that should be like, I just want to say like the right word, like cherished or like treasured. Treasure is a good word for it. It's so incredibly valuable to us. So again, in this world of artificial light and even excessive light and light pollution, people might look at light as a convenience and even at sometimes a burden. And it's anything but that. Light is a phenomenon. It is a miracle. It is supernatural by its nature. Comprehending light is at the center of your journey of why you're here as a soul. And all the things that I've given to you have been like my distillation or my interpretation of this initial like profound impact that I had in insight. You can have a similarly profound moment of insight if you take your tendril of attention and put it on light itself. Okay. So I've given you a lot of good, intelligent integument for this, but I also really want to continue to encourage you in the practice. You get on the path of light, not just by listening to my English language phonemes about it, but also by really interacting with light. And so that really means feeding your light body. Feeding your light body is connecting your tendril of attention to the sun, but feeding your light body is also being around candles and natural forms of light. So I know in our world, almost everybody has like LED lights and fluorescent lights, but like these are not the optimum form of light for your light body in your environment. So the things that help you to embrace light and to move at light speed and to go to greater levels of organization are to be surrounded by levels of organization. And so some things we can't control, like maybe in your neighborhood, they have those crappy LED streetlights. Can't control that, but you can go to town councils and raise a ruckus, and you should, but because you should be like, they're bad for your eyes and blah blah, my circadian rhythm. But in your house, you can take care of Don't have LED lights and those crazy compact fluorescent lights in your house. Get the old-fashioned incandescent bulbs. And I'm a light snob. I'm not afraid to say this. So I get the incandescent bulbs off of eBay or whatever. And then I found this place that I like. It's called Strainless Lighting. And sometimes you can see them in my light fixture up above there. They're kind of orangey. So here's how you do good light hygiene. The sun is going down at the end of the day. You're going to do your sun gazing, even for 5 minutes. Take some time out of your busy day. Do your sun gazing, all right? And then when the sun has gone down, then you should go into a restful mode. And this is part of coordinating with light and being part of the band. And then you should not be like running around and busy doing your emails and like scrubbing the house and everything's like, no, it's time for restful times. In that time is when it's time to have candlelight, or the primal human would build a campfire and then receive the secondary or tertiary light and information and inspiration that comes from beeswax or a fire. But I know not everybody is allowed to do that in their house these days. Things aren't set up for combustion. This isn't whatever 1892. So, you have to be safe and you have to be fire safe or whatever. So I have some nice little beeswax candles, or like a little hurricane lamp that you can put eco wax, not paraffin, but they make this other stuff that's good. Fill your eyes and your light body with actual good light information. And although I know we talk to each other over the computer, the light of the computer is erroneous. It is false light. And I also want you to know this so that, like, you're not getting the real view of what you even look like. People look different in candlelight. Your skin looks different in candlelight than it looks under fluorescent light. Please never try on your bathing suit in one of these, whatever, like Walmart, dressing rooms. It's the worst light. Like, it's the fluorescent light. They would sell a lot more bathing suits if people had candlelight or something, making themselves look nice. You look terrible under fluorescent lights. You look like a zombie. People have dark circles under their eyes. You can see every vein. It's the least flattering lighting in the world. Okay, so rant over. But no. So this has to do with like how you look at yourself and the accuracy of your vision. Since cell phones became so ubiquitous and everybody is always doing a selfie or a video, and that they think that is what they look like, that is not what your skin and face really looks like. Things under LED and fluorescent lights are incredibly unflattering. Most people don't even know what they actually look like under either real sunlight or candlelight. So this is not just some kind of a fake thing to make your lovers look more appealing, like looking at them over candlelight. It's a real thing. So we are not being given a true view of ourselves. And then also, like, as you start to awaken your light body and you're able to perceive and know about yourself more, you really do see the true nature of yourself. When I say, I hesitated there because when I'm like, these words are going to come out of my mouth and be totally meaningless to everyone. Because I'm like, you're going to see the true nature of yourself. And like, Delore, like, what does that even mean? Like, this is so difficult for me to put into words. I'm sorry that I'm so complainy today, but it really is hard. So pouty, pout. It's very, very hard to say these things, but it is truthful. You have to have the correct quality of light to illuminate yourself, to even self-perceive correctly and to see your true nature as a light creature or as a light being. The digital light and the blue light of the computer does not accurately portray yourself to yourself. So please know that and look at yourself with love and try to look at yourself this is your language, so this, in the correct light, which is in the correct light. When you look at yourself in the correct light, then you see that you are formful and beautiful and lovely and the way that you're supposed to be. And these other lights aren't only harsh, but they are erroneous and don't give you a genuine view of what you're even supposed to look like. So let me just make sure that I got lots of questions and comments answered. I really appreciated the way that I was describing sushi. Yeah, it's one of my favorite foods too. I wish they would get rid of all this pollution in the ocean because I would eat sushi every day. But I do really like it when there are foods that are made like in perfect bite-sized pieces and then they don't require no harm, no cutting difficulties or any of those things. Just food goes in here, and then that's very, very nice. And that's what pure light eating is supposed to be like. Yes. Oh, very nice. Suzuka agrees. We all love sushi. It's one of the best foods. Mary Ellen says, are all those black holes individual vortexes? What do they connect to? We'll get into black holes as the inevitability of matter in other weeks of this class as we move forward in curriculum. But basically, black holes are the end result of a story of stars that were emitting light stories, but they no longer emit light stories. What they do is they end up absorbing all of the photons that they sent out. So, as this is going to be hard to do in 5 minutes, but I'm going to do it. The linear model has light coming off of the surface of a sun and moving through space from time point A to point B, and then going into a different black hole, which is the death vortex or change of state vortex created by the end of a different star. But really what happens is each of these photons is supposed to return home to the original star that emitted it. And also the black holes, when they are created, are a doorway into the next level of reality. So they are not just a dead end or a consciousness cul-de-sac. They are the next inevitable stage of existence of stars that evolve, even though it looks like a journey of mortality, like the star has died. It has not actually died. It has ended its moment of emitting stories and gone into its modality of absorbing stories. So in my diagrams, I'm showing you how an alive star acts. It emits photons and the stories that are connected to them. Even though it doesn't emit them, the photons stay home. Again, I struggle with language. But when a star dies, it doesn't die, it evolves and it changes state. And those photons and stories aren't emitted anymore. Instead, the black hole absorbs stories, and it absorbs light stories and the light and their trajectory and where they've come from. In the David Attenborough voice, the science documentaries are always like, the monstrous black hole opens its gaping maw and sucks in every bit of available light. It vacuums up other stars and causes space-time distortions and massive frictions. Like, this is drama queen, but this is not an accurate description. It's a lot of human projection upon what black holes genuinely are. So in the inevitable end of the universe, which is not really the end of the universe at all, but the entropic heat death of this one narrative structure of time description, there are only black holes that are left. In a certain expected time, all of the potentials for making new stars that emit new stories will be done. You have planetary nebulae that are like the building blocks for stars. That's like the torch that you're going to burn, even though stars are not just furnaces burning stuff. But you make stars out of stuff. And at a certain point, you will have no more stuff to make stars out of. Then you will only have the stars that are the burning candles of the moment. And then when they use up all of their fuel, which happens, then they can't emit light anymore. And when that happens, then all that you have is the absorption of the light or the stories that have already been emitted. And when they are absorbed, or internalized is a better word, when they are internalized, they are processed, and each one of those black holes that is an infinite vortex in a spherical direction all the way into the center, it goes to another place. It is an endless journey, just like if you were to look into a photon, it's an endless journey all the way back to the origin of light itself. The black hole is an endless journey that goes into the next level of reality, and that is where light goes on its journey. So the black hole is a doorway, and the doorway connects to a space-time place, a space-time consciousness place that light continues on in its experience. And when you look at it in that sense, then it is not a ending death cul-de-sac, as David Attenborough tries to get you to think, like the light is eaten and it's stuck in the belly of a black hole, that like a whale is like eating a shrimp or whatever. And instead, it is being internalized. So again, I'll talk about this more when I talk about the final teaching in this class, but when you internalize and become a part of the world of photons, you are the shrimp and you are eaten by a whale. You are light that is eaten by light. Instead of you're like, no, I am big and a photon is tiny. I eat the photon. Like, no, You are tiny and the photon is big, and you get eaten by the photon. And that is how you end up having access to all of the time that photon has experienced since the beginning of time. So I will get into more of this, but I really, really appreciate your great question, because black holes is another thing that you can think about. If you ever have 5 minutes standing in line at the grocery store, you'd be like, how do I think about black holes? Because that is some wild stuff. Okay. Maria says, wow, I didn't know this was the scientist view. Seems laughable. I know. So there's a lot of things I can make fun of in science. And I can alienate science a lot. I'm good at that. So Jane Floyd says, thank you, Professor Aurora. I had several light bulb moments, great explanations for difficult concepts. Love to Precious Cheeky. Thank you, Jane. And I recognize you might be in a different time zone. Thank you for being here and for being in class. And also thank you so much for everyone who's a student in this class. I know you watch me struggle at times with my own articulation, vocabulary, and trying to describe these things. Thank you for encouraging me, because I am really navigating a minefield where I'm trying to say it's like this, but it's not like this. So thank you for encouraging me while I'm trying to do a good job here. Suzuki says, thank you, Aurora. And it's a good night for Cheeky. She doesn't have to share you for light years and beyond tonight. Totally. And you guys just did heavy lifting. You all need to like drink a protein shake, take some electrolytes, like for your brain. You need to build your brain. So you're going to throw your pencils in the air and run out of the classroom. And Chris says, thank you for today's lesson. Always a higher perspective understanding. Thank you, Aurora and Cheeky too. Good. So you're so very welcome. And everybody who's in this class and who's formally enrolled, watch those whiteboards, because I do a good job of talking about these things here. But those whiteboards were like when I had the very, very fresh impressions. And I think that they're the freshest transmission of this light. And I know sometimes in the whiteboards, it sounds like I'm like whispering, because I literally would be like recording them in the middle of the night back in a different house when I had roommates, and I'd be like saying these little things into my computer. Really says, I have just 2 incandescent crystal lamps and candles to light my place. I rarely use overhead lights. Such good words of upliftment. You're very, very welcome. And thank you for taking good care of your light body. So these are important things to do what you can in your own environment to optimize the light. And that also means optimizing your heat. That's why I use my little chicken lamp to stay warm and stuff like that. And she says, oh my, OMG, yes, cleaning the ocean is a huge focus of mine. So I know that you'll be able to, when your psychic capacities become fully engaged, be able to clear out both the things that pollutions that blockade humans from experiencing the sunlight, but also there's information in water. And there was a time in this world when all of the waters were gentle, beautiful, perfect sine waves, beautiful rip curls in every single ocean. And now you have this disorganized water. The water also is supposed to contain light, and I'll get to about how molecular structure contains light on a different level. Yes, Mary Ellen, correct. And thank you. Michelangelo says, thank you, Master Aurora. Love to all hear. Thank you. He's probably off to go sun gazing. Good job. And I'll see if I can sun gaze too. And Aurelia says, I witnessed a black hole before at my beginning of this experience here on Earth. Well, that sounds fascinating. And I wonder how it relates to what you experienced, because I know that you've had like an interesting journey coming here. Yeah. Amelia says, I look forward to everything you have to share. As always, love Path of Light. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Thank you to returning students, because I've taught this, actually, I think this is my 7th or 8th time teaching Path of Light curriculum. Thank you for those who return. I'm always upgrading and trying to get better at being able to share these things. Thank you for also re-listening, because I think that these are like deep concepts, and you come at them from a different perspective every time you hear them, and it might fall in your ears differently, and you might really perceive it differently. So this is deep stuff. Even if you've taken my class before, it's worth it for the retread. Thank you for being with me. And then also thank you to everybody who's new. I hope that you are like that was a good workout. I hope you come back next week, be like, my muscles have recovered and I'm ready for the next thing. So you have to throw your books and pencils in the air right now. Be like, whoa, we're done. And now you all have to go and do something really fun, like silly, play with the dog, put on some music, do whatever, because really this helps everything to sink into your brain. So process all these things, do your homework, watch the recorded whiteboards, and then I'm very, very excited for class next time. Okay. And I'll always send out my class notes, which of course are my highly ungrammatical message that I keep to myself in order to be able to stay on track during class. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. You all did a very good job today. Thank you.